Patrick, we kicked off the SOS Challenge recently. Actually started it at the beginning of March by hearing about the 4 studies that are going to lead this 2-month collaborative event. So actually, let's start there. What interested you about these 4 studies in particular, and why are they a good vehicle for carrying this global network study challenge forward?
At the start of the month, we heard from 4 different collaborative teams who brought 4 really important research questions to the community. We had a team that was focused on answering the question about whether fluoroquinolones, an important antibiotic we commonly use, whether it actually increases the risk of aortic aneurysm. And that was a project that was actually brought forth by a team in Korea and Australia. We had a second question focused in the ophthalmology space on whether anti-VEGF treatments for blinding diseases may potentially increase the risk of renal dysfunction. We had a third question that was focused on treatments for psoriasis and trying to answer a question about the potential risk of cerebrovascular events associated with one of the new biologics that are actively being used for psoriasis. And that was brought to us by a clinician in the UK. And then we also had a project initiation from Saudi Arabia focused on the question about multiple sclerosis biologic treatments and the risk of PML. What I think all 4 of these questions really had in common is that they are important questions that could directly influence regulatory policy and clinical care about the effective management of important diseases. And yet all of them remain questions for which there isn't currently reliable evidence and for which observational data, and in particular the types of observational network studies that OHDSI can run, really have a great opportunity to make a very substantial impact. So I was really excited that across the community we had over 100 collaborators who raised their hand and said they wanted to participate in one or all of these 4 studies, and really excited that the study leads, Cindy, Jack, Thamir, Zenis, have all agreed to take their studies forward, and really excited about what the next couple months have to come as we take those ideas and turn those into reliable evidence.
It is a great opportunity, obviously, to answer these important questions. But the other opportunity is simply to learn the process of running and participating in a network study. And we're having 2 different tutorials each week that take you through every step of the network study. What are you hoping, besides obviously answering these questions, but what are you hoping that people learn over these 2 months?
We're really fortunate to have so many experts in our community who are willing to contribute their time to participate in these studies, but we're also really fortunate to have experts in our community who are willing to lead tutorials about specific segments of the journey to conduct a network study. It's a lot of work to take a question and work through the steps of identifying the data sources that are appropriate, developing and evaluating the phenotypes, designing an analysis, executing it across the network, conducting meta-analysis to synthesize the evidence, and interpreting those results. And the truth of the matter is, far too often, individual researchers try to go it alone and do all of those steps. So what I hope that we're going to really be able to role model over the next couple of months is how we as a community can work as a team, where we have expertise in individual steps, and that in addition to giving people the really hands-on experience of doing these network studies, these 4 that have been brought forth to the community, that people also see it as an inspirational model of how they could take their own research idea and work with other members of the community to collaborate on the journey. I think what we'll also clearly demonstrate is that doing these types of very large-scale efforts doesn't require years of efforts or millions of dollars, but instead what it really requires is the collective interest and will of our community to do something pretty transformative. So the idea that we're going to run 4 studies over 2 months, nobody else in the world could even fathom the idea that we could do that, but we're going to demonstrate that not only is it feasible, but it's something that rallying together, we can make common practice.
This is certainly a big collaborative activity for the community, but it's not the only one. Certainly this year, we mentioned over the last month that registration is now open for all 3 of the OHDSI symposiums, obviously the Asia Pacific and the European Symposium in July, and then the Global Symposium in October. All 3, you can find more information on the OHDSI.org homepage. And then more immediately, our 2nd annual DevCon, which will be held virtually this year, April 21st. And that's going to really be a deep dive into the open source topics and aspects of the community. I think next month we'll be able to look back on DevCon and talk about what happened. But maybe for right now, can you just kind of talk about open source development in the community, kind of where it is and why people should make it and join DevCon to hear about what's happening in Odyssey?
Absolutely. So when I mentioned earlier that the Sisyphus Challenge is going to demonstrate that it is feasible for us to collaborate in conducting high quality research studies at an efficient scale, that's only made possible because we have open source software that allows us to do large scale analytics that are freely available and tested across our network. And so DevCon's a great chance for those in the community who are interested in development to learn about the current state of our open source software ecosystem, to identify opportunities where they could contribute. But it's also a great opportunity for those that are users of the open source software in our community to hear from our developers, hear about the collaborative ecosystem that we have to establish that is not only scientific and technical in nature, but it also is the socio-political elements of having a community that can collaborate together. So really feel fortunate that we have Adam Black and Paul Nagy that's coordinating our DevCon. I know they've created a great agenda that's representing a diverse set of topics from across our community, and really hope that members of the community come to join to listen and learn and hopefully find opportunities for them to contribute themselves.
Once again, DevCon, April 21st, virtual, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find more information there. Between DevCon and the SOS Challenge, we have 4 weeks of tutorials, a lot of work to be done. It should be a really exciting month. Thanks for joining, Patrick.
Thanks, Greg. Science!